Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DMD podcast. That's Dark Match Drive. With me today are Johnny and Jeremy. Just a three-person panel. I am Kieran, and we got some things to get into today. I think the first thing I'd like to talk about today mostly is the new video game that we have all played very, very often, I think, this last week or two. Of course, I'm talking about AEW's Fight Forever, which has been kind of I want to say it's been a mixed release for some people. I think I feel like we're going to be positive about this between the three of us, but lots of things to get into, lots of glitches, lots of I don't like this, I did like this. People don't like some of the animations and characters, and I guess some people are just not. I feel like a lot of people weren't prepared for what this was going to be, anyways. But before we get into that, I just want to throw up a quick question there. You guys can intro. Johnny, how are you doing today? And also, who's your favorite AEW Fight Forever character to play as?
Wow, I'm doing fantastic today. Who's my favorite AEW? I really don't know. I mean, they're all so different, which is really fun. I mean, I guess I'd have to pick the one I've spent the most time playing as, and that would be the only character I've done an entire Road to Elite with, and that's Eddie Kingston. So he was the first guy I did my first Road to Elite in one sitting on Twitch on release night. So it was a long night playing that game all
I
night on
I think I
Twitch.
fell asleep before you started that one. I remember your Scorpio Sky matches.
I was doing the challenges first, and then I went into Road to Elite with Eddie and got raided by a friend of mine and played that until like 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a long night.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, that's what I wanted out of this game. A game that you could play for that long.
Yeah.
Like game you could play for a long time, and I have a few times now as a non-gamer. So, Jeremy, how you doing today? And who is your favorite Fight Forever character so far?
I'm doing pretty good. So I got the game, I don't know, a couple nights ago, so I haven't played as much, but I definitely put a night into it. Um, I think my character right now is probably Kenny Omega. I've played as Sting, and I really love the mini games. So we'll get into that. But yeah, I really like Kenny's move set. I struggled with the V trigger as the special, and then or the signature, yeah.
Yeah.
And then trying to figure out how to do one winged angel as this. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like Kieran. I'm not of even a part-time gamer as far as consoles go, so it was a learning curve for me, but it's a fun game, and I like Kenny's moveset.
It's the type of game you could do that with. It really is. Like they said, we want this to be a pick up and play game, and it really is. Like really not hard to figure out. At the regular difficulty that it starts off as, you could probably pick up play and maybe even get a win in your first match. I think they succeeded in that. I mean, it may not be for everyone, but in their goal, they seem to have succeeded there. My favorite character to play up as is no real surprise. It's Powerhouse Hobbs, but on the fact that I just like him a lot, and like there are a lot of AEW. I don't really have a favorite AEW wrestler at the moment. But most of his moves involve picking up a guy and throwing him across the ring. If you throw him into the corner, you bail him into the middle of the ring. If you there's like even if he's laying on his stomach on the ground, you pick him up from the ground like this and throw him back at the ground. It seems physically impossible sometimes when you're wrestling. A wrestler you shouldn't be able to do that too, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. And it's the character I ended up doing Road to Elite with. I did like a short Brian Danielson one, and then I switched to Hobbs. I'm almost through it. I think I'm almost through it. How many goddamn blocks are there?
4.
Oh, I'm halfway through four. Okay,
There's
so there
one
we
block
go.
for each pay-per-view.
Oh, fair enough. I'm on 4 now. I just beat the shit out of Cody Rhodes and sent him to the hospital. Oh, anyway,
Yeah, do
that
you have
was
to
fun.
buy Cody with the in-game money? I saw that was one
Yes.
of the things.
Yes, you
Yes,
do.
you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you can buy him like right at the start.
Yeah, he's a
Pretty
very cheap. If you did even just a handful of the challenges, you can get him
Okay.
immediately, pretty much. Yeah.
Let's break this down. Let's break this game down a little bit for people. Maybe there's still some people I know who are on the fence about buying it. So, uh, first of all, the visuals have kind of been a little bit of a contention so far. Um, there's a few characters I don't like. Eddie Kingston does look kind of weird from some perspectives, and then looks great other times.
Yeah.
He's got that Seinfeld good face bad face thing going on. He looks good. He looks bad. Um, I think the CM Punk model looks awful. It looks like they rushed it to put him back in the game after they took him out or something. I don't know what it is going on with the CM Punk model. The Jacksons don't look that great. But other than that, I really don't have a problem with most of the characters. They're kind of goofy animated versions of themselves. Like I heard people being upset about Jericho, but whatever. You can tell it's Jericho. You look at him, it's all the likeness in a goofy type of way. Connie, you got anything to add about visuals you like or you don't like?
I mean, I enjoyed it because it caught that appeal that it was going for, right? Like it's not this game isn't about hyper realism. It's meant to be a more arcade style game. Like you said, it's a game you're supposed to be able to pick up and play. And I mean, really, as long as each of the individual models bear enough resemblance that you can look at them immediately and go, "Oh, that's this guy, or that's this guy." Even the ones that look sort of worse than others. You mentioned Eddie and the Jacksons and Punk. Even looking at those guys, it's still very obvious who they're supposed to be. And that can't be said for older wrestling titles. Where there are a lot of guys you'd look at and be like, that's supposed to be, huh? That looks nothing like them. And I think that works for this game where, even the guys who do look slightly more like cartoony versions of themselves still look like cartoony versions of themselves at the end of the day. Whether that's somewhere along the line they changed their minds from leaning further into the cartoony and sort of tried to bring it back to more realistic looks halfway through the production or something like that, it makes sense. Because there are a lot of guys who look a bit more weird than others, and those are guys who've been on the roster for a long time.
Yeah,
Like if you
Brian
look at
Cage comes to mind.
yeah,
Brian
if you
Cage
look at
looks very animated.
yeah, so it makes sense that some of the guys, you can sort of see the production, from guys that they made first to guys that were made towards the end of the cycle, where you can see where they've improved on the engine and made things look better and work better, and that's fine for a first outing. Like people say, well, it's AKI, it's THQ, they've been doing this for 30. Well, in reality, they haven't made a wrestling game in 20 years.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time.
It was
So
probably very different making a video game at that time.
their last generation of consoles was the N64. People cut them some slack,
Remember when we were impressed by N64 graphics?
right?
My God.
It looked like a
So
2D
real.
face, pasted on a 3D graphic. We loved it,
Yeah.
and it captures that. I love it. I think the graphics look fantastic for what it's supposed to be.
You have any sort of add into the graphics? You like it, you don't like it, you're okay with it?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the fence about Eddie Kingston. I thought he kind of wasn't the greatest looking. That being said, Chris Statlander, they really nailed her like look and the face, and so they got her down really well. But honestly, like I think the visuals are good enough that they're not going to detract from you're not going to play the game and think, "Hey, this is not who I think I'm playing as." You're not going to be in there with, John Silver and be like, "Oh, that's not really looking like him," or Darby Allin, or I mean, they really nailed everyone. And uh Kate and I were going through the roster and kind of having a laugh at who looked good and who didn't. And every single masked or painted wrestler looked really good. the actual faces of wrestlers hit and miss. So
Yeah.
that probably went into the development.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I did find that, um, yeah, certain wrestlers, and there's like really weird things about it. Like Sammy Guevara, for some reason, has a really shiny looking face, and you're like, well, what do you like? Why did he always rub Vaseline on his face before he wrestled today? I don't get it, but you
Yeah,
can tell it's him. It's just like, why is he so shiny? I know there's a picture online floating around that people were making fun of Britt Baker being like super burnt, but then also very glossy. Like she was like, but anyways, the visuals work for me. It sounds like they all kind of work for us, and we know what they're going for. It's not like you're playing Madden, 23 or 24 coming out, I guess soon. And you're like,
that is
wow,
changing.
you could see the highlight or the reflection of the field in the person's eye, and you're like, yeah, that's not what they were going for. They didn't want you to see all the moles and whatever. It was like arcade game. It's like they're supposed to be the Mortal Kombat type versions of themselves. Like they look like humans, but they're exaggerated. Anyways, enjoyed all that. Gameplay wise, I think the game is fantastic. I've actually had almost zero problems with it. I know that the PlayStation 4 version had a ton of glitches that needed to be fixed, and I don't know if the patches have come out for that. So if if you have the PlayStation 4 and you're watching this, maybe you could wait and see if they fix those before you purchase the game. But I've had almost no problems. One time I got thrown out of the ring in a casino battle royal match, and I just kind of ghosted through the ring. But I think
That's
that's the only
awesome.
one I can think of. Yeah, it was pretty funny. I got like Irish whipped, and my guy was like running, and then he just went and like through the ring, and then I was like, wait, am I out or am I still under the ring? And then another guy came in, and I was like,
Like I had a weird
yes,
Xbox glitch. Like I was trying to pin this guy and he kept kicking out.
That's it's not an Xbox glitch, buddy.
Oh,
Yeah,
I should probably delete my tweet then.
maybe.
yeah. You're probably not getting your money back for that one.
I don't think
Um,
so.
yeah, I mean, just quickly, so we can get along to some other things. Your overall idea of the gameplay, just like, is the gameplay good? Is it bad? Is there things you have a problem with it, or are you just having too much of a blast to notice? Because that's when I hear from people, oh, I don't like this and I don't like that. My main sort of answer to anyone about that is I'm just having too much of a blast to give a crap about. When you Irish whip a person, they reverse it too much, or yeah, people don't kick out of finishers enough, or like that. I'm having too much of a blast to care about those sorts of things right now. Jer, how do you feel about the controls of the game? Like, basically, what's your experience when you're playing the game? What's the gameplay like?
Honestly, I like the gameplay because it's simplified, but you're also not mashing. You're not button mashing. It doesn't reward you for not trying to learn how to play the game. And I think that's important because I mean, it's not as intricate as a WWE game where, up, down, A, B gets, does a super kick or whatever. Uh, I think you're rewarded for learning albeit simple, but there's something to the maneuvers, and I think the gameplay is really smooth. Um, that everything looks good. The moves look good. The graphics look good. Um, just and I mean, you get. They tried to do a WCW NWO Revenge clone essentially, and I think for the most part they nailed it with the gameplay because it's not trying to be something it's not, and they've said that from day one. It's an arcade style wrestling game, and that's if your expectations are there, which I hope most people's are. I know some complaints or whatever, but if that's your expectation, they rewarded you with an arcade wrestling game that sometimes goes outside the norm. I mean, the mini games and all that, which are really fun. I'm terrible at that penta pose one. That one.
I am also
That
terrible
one.
at that.
But yeah, like it's a fun wrestling game, and it's not trying to be something it's not. And I think that if you're a fan of just playing wrestling games that don't try to beat you over the head with realism and simulation and which is fine, but we've already got that. We don't need another one of those.
Yeah, I'd say as well actually to that, and I've heard that that sort of sentiment online quite a bit. But what I would say to that is, one, I enjoyed Legends of Wrestling, even though a lot of people hated that game and it was pretty bad in a lot of ways. I enjoyed the TNA Impact game that came out.
That was fun.
Same thing. There was lots of bad things about the game, but I sort of enjoyed it. This game is far ahead of those games. Like I mean, obviously it had a well developed sort of engine competitive AKI style that was already developed and well loved enough to make 4 games across both companies, both major companies. Um, and yes, like when I hear people say like, yeah, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be like like an indie wrestling game. You're like, nah, this is a pretty good first effort, and those games didn't get sequels. But I mean, and I'm sure this game will get a sequel, but from what I'm hearing, it's years down the road because we're gonna keep adding to this game. I still haven't got the season pass. I don't know why. FDR is waiting right there online in digital to come and kick some ass, and I have yet to get into that. But that's all we'll talk about AEW Fight Forever for today. Thanks you for listening to our podcast or getting our quick hit there. And
Hit subscribe.
yeah, do that thing.
Yeah,
that QR code. There's one of those code things that you
yes
usually get tickets from this thing. Oh, Johnny did it wrong. We can edit this out. We can't be. We can. Yes. No, we can't. Okay.
No, we are live. We're live, pal.
Yeah. And I got half the brain that you do.